Well, for weeks on this show, I've been talking about names like Dante Moore, Jayden Rashada, and Jurrion Dickey, and I had the chance to talk in person with all three of them over the weekend. I'll tell you what they had to say. And Oregon basketball loses a commitment in the class of 2022. Dior Johnson will not be a Duck. That's not a terrible thing. Here we go.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin, D1 play-by-play broadcaster and lifelong Oregon Ducks fan. Thanks for making this your first listen or your first view. If you're watching on YouTube every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. Like, comment, subscribe wherever you're listening to or watching the show. Thank you to all of you who have done so already. This episode brought to you by Bet Online. Bet Online has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. Bet Online, where the game starts. So those of you that are on Twitter have probably seen some highlights in the last several days, starting on Thursday, going all the way up through Sunday, and I'm recording this on Sunday night, of the OT7 showcase, right? Is this company called Overtime put on a big 7-on-7 tournament in Las Vegas. I was fortunate enough to be able to go down on Saturday and Sunday and check it out, watch the games, talk to a couple players. We'll get to here momentarily, but the number one thing that I wanted to share with all of you is these guys are good. I mean, it's really impressive to watch 16 and 17-year-olds go out there, and you're just thinking to yourself, that guy's ready to play Power 5 football right now. But it's an 18 and under tournament, so everybody is there. I don't think there were any seniors that were there. You had to, everybody was either a rising senior, class of 2023, or a rising junior, class of 2024, and then there was an occasional like 2025 or 2026, which is like a freshman and sophomore in high school, right? Just some young guys, and so that was all good and fun. But I was there just for you Duck fans. I mean, not entirely, but partially, to talk to some Oregon players, one of whom has already verbally committed, in Jurrion Dickey, and then the two quarterbacks that Oregon's looking at, Jayden Rashada and Dante Moore. And we'll start with Dickey. And I was asking him. He's a really laid back guy, not super talkative, but a really nice dude. He was showing out big time at this event. He was the day one MVP on Thursday. He plays on the same 7-on-7 team as Jayden Rashada. They're the Miami something. I already forgot. There were a bunch of team names down there, but he was really, really impressive. His route running and his agility. He's got great hands, but those two things in particular, when you see it up close in person, it's one thing to watch it on YouTube, which is what I do for a lot of the guys I talk about here on the show. I look up their YouTube highlights, and I'll watch them over and over again, and study them and try to pick stuff out, and then bring you my analysis of it. But it's different when you watch them in person. And Dickey was leaving dudes in the dust. He's catching balls and spinning away from defenders, and this is a one-hand touch to get you down setting, right? And he's still able to make guys miss. He's that elusive. He's that explosive. He's a big guy, at least more than I remember. I first covered him when he was a freshman in high school. He played on varsity and actually caught a 50-yard Hail Mary, and I was doing the game on radio. And when his name popped up close to Oregon, I was like, oh man, I know who that is. And he has grown a lot in high school, and he is a really big body guy, but he's so quick. He's so agile, and he's just so nimble out there, and he runs really crisp routes. You can tell he's worked at this stuff a lot. He was very, very impressive. And he did look very good catching some balls from Jayden Rashada. They hooked up in Miami Immortals. That's their name. They hooked up for a 35, 40-yard touchdown in the back of the end zone in what was ultimately their final game on Sunday in the single elimination portion of the tournament. But, I asked him about what he liked about Oregon when he first heard about it. And it's always great to hear that a guy who grew up in the Bay Area in California said that he grew up, watching Oregon, or he knew about Oregon, and it was a team that he'd, heard a lot about. And when I asked him about why he wanted to commit, he said, Junior Adams is a really good guy. He's a good coach, but that he, was very, very focused on non-football components, right? It's not that football wasn't a factor in his decision, but the vibe that I got from him in talking to him was that he, was all about family. He said, I wanted to go to the best place for my family and where I thought, I'd be able to succeed the most and still have, close relationships with his family. And he talked about the relationships he had with coaches as well. And I think that's a fascinating element of recruiting, and I'll get to that a little bit here with Jayden Rashada because he's an interesting cat as well. Again, a really nice guy to talk to. But Dickey was very adamant that football was a part of it, but it wasn't all of it, right? It was about the total experience that Oregon was offering him and the vision that they were selling and, how that tied into him and how it could best serve him and his family. And it's just about that family fit and talking to recruits about that sort of stuff, I think is interesting because everybody has a different approach. Some guys are just, where can I maximize my football potential? Where can I, maximize my NIL potential? Or where could I maximize this, that, and the other thing? But he was all about, what's best for me and my family, and what do we think? And I thought that was a really good perspective for a guy that age to have. Rashada, who is expected to commit June 18th. That is this Saturday. This is Monday show that I'm recording on Sunday. There's a possibility he might not commit. Now he's expected to. He thinks he's going to, but I was talking to him with one or two other reporters at the same time. I'm not a reporter, but they had actual reporters there. But, we were all talking to him, asking him questions, and he is very unsure about where he's going to school. He released the final 7. Oregon is in it. So is Cal, Miami, LSU, Texas A&M. I have to look at the other ones, but you can find it out there. He said that 6 are really in the mix, ones that he's heavily considering. He didn't say which one has kind of been weeded out. My guess would be Cal, but I don't know that for sure. Just because Cal doesn't really fit with in terms of the caliber of schools that he's considering. But that guy's a competitor. That guy is an absolute competitor. And we were talking to him after they had lost. And they got beat pretty bad. They didn't score, but the defense allowed a bunch of points. And I won't go into the whole 7-on-7 format. You can look it up and such. But he did not play particularly well in that specific game. Overall, he had some great throws. I mean, the touchdown to Dickey it reminded me of that throw Justin Herbert had in the 2017 game against the Beavs to the back of the end zone. It was probably to Dylan Mitchell, where he just kind of like squeezes it in and then he toe taps it right on the back part of the end zone. It was a lot like that. It was a really impressive throw, and it was a really impressive catch too. But I really like the way that he was approaching that whole situation. And I also like reminding you that BetOnline is your number one source for all your betting stats and sports info. You can find all the latest developments, news, and odds, including this year's basketball championship matchup, NHL hockey conference finals, Major League Baseball, go Mariners, and of course, all the latest fighting news from MMA and UFC to boxing. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline is where the game starts. What I liked about Rashada is after they lost, it's not a tournament, this overtime 7-on-7 deal. I mean, it got plenty of attention, right? 24/7 Sports was there and Rivals was there and On3. Like, it's getting plenty of national hype. People know about it, and it's pretty widely publicized. I think Adam Schefter tweeted about it. Like, it's not a small event, but still, in the grand scheme of these guys' careers and where they're going to go, it doesn't necessarily mean a ton, right? It's not going to majorly impact your recruitment one way or the other if you're a guy who already has a bunch of offers. It might be an opportunity for you to showcase something, but there were not a bevy of coaches and college scouts out there who were looking at players and seeing whether or not they want them to come to their program and whatnot. But all that in mind, I say that to point out that Rashada wanted to win. And I can tell you not everybody had that approach. Some guys went out and they just like playing football. And Rashada loves playing football. But a lot of guys went out there and they were, like, oh, okay, we lost. Oh well, that's okay. It's like it's just a fun thing to do. But he's not built like that from from what I could see. And he was disappointed that they lost, and he was not happy with his own play either. He was very critical of himself. He said, that was not my best effort. I didn't perform the way that I expect to. And, he wants to be better and grow from that. And I think that's a really great mindset for a young guy to have. You have to always want to be better, especially at the quarterback position that is as competitive as any, because you're only going for one slot, right? Running backs, you can get a handful of carries here and there, or receivers, you can get catches, tight end, right? All that sort of stuff. But quarterbacks, there's just one. I think you have to have that competitive edge. And I did ask him about Jurrion Dickey because that is a tandem that worked very well for the Miami Immortals. They did win a couple games and do pretty well in pool play in this event. But I asked him, what was it like throwing with Jurrion Dickey? His face lit up immediately. I'm not saying that he's going to choose Oregon because of that, but I'm just reporting back what I was told by Rashada when I talked to him. And I mean, he lit up immediately and just said, that's my dude, right? And he loves throwing balls to him, and that they, have great chemistry, and they complete a lot of passes together over the weekend. And, I said, is that something that's factoring into your decision? And he didn't brush it off as like, no, that's never something. But he also wasn't all the way in on, Dickey's there. So I'm going to definitely, choose Oregon because of it. I think it's something that he's considering, but not necessarily something that he is, considering as a lead factor, right? I think it's something that he thinks about. And then I asked a follow-up question, said, like, is that something you follow? And he said, a little bit, yeah. You want to be as a quarterback aware of who you might be playing with, but at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you're making the best decision for yourself. And he was not sure. He's really not sure. At least that's what he told all of us. Maybe he knows and just doesn't want to say right now. But of the final 7 schools, or whichever 6 it actually is, he does not know. So that one kind of feels like it could go anyway. Florida, I think, is in that mix as well for Rashada. My favorite interview of the weekend was with Dante Moore, the 5-star quarterback out of Michigan, who made a lot of really good throws. And, he's not the biggest guy. Like he's smaller than Jayden, but he's got a really crisp motion. He's got a good, strong arm. His accuracy and ball placement on passes that are over the middle of the field or kind of short to intermediate routes. Not that he can't throw a deep ball. He can, but I think Rashada is a little bit more advanced in that sense because he has a bigger arm. But I tell you, Moore is ridiculously accurate. Both have, solid mobility. They're not crazy athletes, but they're good athletes. But Dante Moore, I only saw him throw, I watched him play several games. He had like 3 incompletions maybe, and one of them was a drop. I mean, he made reads well, and he had 7-on-7, but these guys stood out from the rest. I'll just say that. I mean, Nico Iamaleava was there. He looked pretty sharp. Malachi Nelson going to USC. He looked that guy's the first round NFL draft pick. Like, just putting that out there right now. That's a big time player. But Dante Moore, I liked watching him play, but I loved getting to talk to him even more, both because it's fun to, see what these guys are like in person, how they're enjoying the process, how they're going through it, and how you handle something like that. And his 7-on-7 coach is Cam Newton, who is a perfectly built human being constructed in a laboratory and is just a physical specimen, the likes of which I had never stood next to until this weekend. But when I, caught some audio of Cam talking about Dante Moore, and someone had asked him, what do you see in this guy? Like, what do you like about as a quarterback? He did not jump to his skills on the football field. He brushed that off immediately. Not that Dante doesn't have him, because he does, but Cam was just all in, first name basis with Cam Newton now, obviously. I'm kidding, but he jumped right to his leadership skills, his poise, his ability to command a huddle, command a team, control an offense, and know where everyone needs to be. And he's a very cerebral guy, and he's got great leadership skills. That's what Cam Newton was talking about a lot with him. He said, look, everybody's talented in some way or another, but when you have this guy, he's going to make everybody better because he knows the offense inside and out, but he wants other guys to be better, and he wants to improve, and he wants to go to the league, so he has that sort of work ethic. And I got to interview him for about 5 minutes or so. He's a really impressive young guy, and I don't know what all of you were like at the age of 17, but I'd like to think I was a decently mature 17-year-old, but I don't know if I could have given answers the way that he did. I mean, I'm asking him all these questions about Oregon and about recruiting and where he's at, and everything that he did in terms of giving me an answer was just very cerebral. I mean, it's not that he had to think about it. He knew what he wanted to say, but I could tell that he's somebody who has put in a good amount of thought into what he wants to say. And I like that in a quarterback. I do, because that speaks to your preparation, your mindset, how you approach that sort of stuff. It's why, media members make judgments about what people say in press conferences, because it's often a testament to how you prepare for anything in your life, right? I mean, you hear those sorts of comparisons all the time, is like how you prepare for this is how you're going to prepare for that, right? I mean, we could all think of, I don't have a great analogy in my head right now, but make your bed every morning, right? I was taught you should make your bed every morning. Start the day with a completed task and have that mindset of going to get stuff done today, right? And that sets the tone. And I think that Dante Moore sets a tone of someone who is, poised to be a leader and wants to be a leader, embraces that, but not in a sense of, oh, I want to be the leader because I want to be the guy and I want the attention. No, I think he wants to be the sort of guy who, galvanizes a team and an offense and is the vocal leader. I mean, he's definitely not shy, and he knows how to talk. And that's a good thing, in my opinion, for someone who's at a position where you typically have to be, the focal point and the leader of an offense. And I was really, really impressed with him. I haven't talked to a lot of 17-year-olds who are highly rated football recruits, but I don't know how much more impressive you can be. At least with me. Maybe because I look really young, I was making him comfortable, but I didn't. I don't think that was the case. He's just a really impressive guy, and I love getting a chance to talk to him. I think Oregon would be in a great spot with either one of them. I think they both have a lot of really great traits, but Dante's presence and just his commitment to football and his love of football, and the way that he wants to be a leader of the guys around him and his teammates, I was really, really impressed with Dante Moore. So Dior Johnson decommitted from Oregon. Yeah, it's not one I totally saw coming, but also one I'm not wildly caught off guard by. Now, he was once a 5-star recruit when he originally committed to the Ducks. 24/7 lately downgraded him to a 4-star. I didn't know that they did that, but again, highly rated 4-star or a 5-star doesn't make a ton of difference. I just hadn't seen that before, but he was part of this incoming 2022 class that includes Kello Ware and Tyrone Williams and Brennan Rigsby, from the JUCO ranks, along with Jermaine Couisnard and Keyshawn Barthelemy via the transfer portal. I don't think the Ducks need to add another body here. I mean, I was talking with Ryan Winter about basketball, sometime last week. All the days are blurring together. It's summertime. There are no days of the week and whatnot. There never are in my job anyway. But regardless, I don't think that you have to, because as I was thinking about that, I was like, man, this is a really crowded roster. This is a really crowded backcourt with Will Richardson returning. And I think there's a decent chance that Johnson stays committed if Richardson decides to go elsewhere, because that would open up a backcourt slot. But now he's not going to play a lot as a freshman. And honestly, I'm not going to say I wanted to lose someone who's as talented as him. I did a breakdown of his game. I think he shows a lot of really good qualities on the court. But I'm not concerned that he's not coming to the Ducks. Is he talented? Yes. But did I think that with the transfers we've brought in and Richardson coming back this year, that Dior Johnson was a prime candidate to leave the Ducks after his freshman season and try to get more playing time elsewhere? Also, yes. I had that thought in the back of my mind, and then it was exacerbated by the fact that in high school, and I looked this up, you can too, I'm not I'm not pulling out of my rear here. He played for 10 high schools. Okay, so there's only 4 years in a high school career for those of us math majors at home who went to high school. He played for 10. And again, talented guy. But if you think back to Dana Altman's comments after that Texas A&M game, when he, let loose as much as Dana Altman ever really has in a press conference, at least that I can remember, he was talking about commitment and buy-in. And he said, you know what? We only want guys as a staff who are all in on the program, who are going to be all in on Oregon basketball. And I'm not sure Dior Johnson would have been that sort of guy. His history just doesn't indicate that. And now he's looking at, I think, Mississippi State, Washington State, and somebody else. Wazoo's the only other Pac-12 school he could potentially go to. But I saw this news and I was like, boy, didn't anticipate that. But also, I don't think this is groundbreaking in any way, shape, or form. I think the Ducks are going to be just fine. The backcourt depth is totally fine. Like, what 1,000%? If you have Will Richardson, Jermaine Couisnard, Keyshawn Barthélemy, barring a string of really bad and really consistent injuries throughout the course of the year, the backcourt depth is going to be just fine. I'm really not worried about it at all. And I saw Johnson coming in as a true freshman, as a pretty highly rated recruit, as somebody who would have been the fourth option as a guard. And that's just not going to see a lot of playing time. 3, yes, but I think when you introduce Tyrone Williams into the mix, he could potentially play the 2 slot. He could also play the 3 or maybe even a small ball 4, coming off the bench, kind of that Eric Williams role. But I think he's kind of a 2 or 3, really a pure 2. But I just didn't see a lot of room in the backcourt. And so the ramifications now with Dior Johnson not coming in is I think you just have more playing time for proven college players in Keyshawn Barthélemy and Jermaine Couisnard. Now, maybe Johnson goes elsewhere and proves to be a better player than either of them and look back and go, boy, maybe we really did want him to stay. But the caliber of schools that are interested in him at this point in time leads me to believe that he'll probably be a solid college player. But coming into this year, I don't think he was going to crack the rotation in a way that would have led him to staying around for another season. And then you probably would have had that awkward situation where Dana Altman's like, oh, well, I want to play this guy because I want him to stay, but I also want to win games, so I need to put out the best 5 on the court who are giving me the chance to do that. And that's not always a true freshman. Sometimes it is. Maybe it'll include Kelaware, maybe it won't. But whichever guard Keyshawn Barthélemy or whichever guard Dana Altman sees as the backup point guard, either Jermaine Couisnard or Keyshawn Barthélemy, I think it should be Barthélemy, but maybe he sees it as Couisnard. I think it just means more playing time for either of those guys who we know can produce at the Power 5 level. They've shown that. Barthélemy at Colorado, very productive. Couisnard at South Carolina was also a really solid player. He comes over with Chuck Martin, who was fantastic on Friday in the interview when he came here on the show. And by the way, I have been advocating for weeks, and I will continue to lobby for in the months leading up to this college basketball season that Oregon should roll with a big lineup. And now that you have one less guard in the mix, I have now got a backer of said idea. I'll still claim original credit here because I think I said it before he did. But John Rothstein, who we all aspire to be, I aspire to be John Rothstein when I grew up, or at least half as cool as he is. He said, with Johnson not coming in, Oregon should maybe go with a big lineup. You got Will Richardson, put him out there with Couisnard, Guerrier, Ware, Dante. I think that's their starting 5. You bring Rigsby, Williams, and Rivaldo Soares with Nate Biddle off the bench and Barthélemy as well. That's a 5 that can win a Pac-12 conference championship, make a run in an NCAA tournament. That's certainly what we all want to see. Thanks for making this your first listen. Go make Locked On Pac-12 your second, where I am talking about the Conference of Champions. I appreciate everyone listening. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.